Punches thrown in the Suns locker room multiple times. Kevin Durant argues that it didn't happen. Boogie Cousins says, oh no, it absolutely did. Who's right and what does it matter for the Phoenix Suns moving forward? I'm Trevor Lane. This is the Basketball Bulletin. Make sure you subscribe right here to the channel. So bizarre back and forth here on social media between Kevin Durant and DeMarcus Cousins. DeMarcus Cousins on the Run It Back show for FanDuel said that the Phoenix Suns had multiple fistfights in the locker room during the season. Now, look, we knew that the season was bad for the Phoenix Suns. We knew it was a terrible, no good, horrible, very bad season for the Phoenix Suns. And that's what can come sometimes with expectations. See, expectations can be great if you exceed them. If you don't, well, then life isn't fun. You look at the Phoenix Suns, they didn't even make the play-in the Western Conference, finishing 11th. And with that much talent, that is absolutely ridiculous. That's absurd to not even make the play-in the Western Conference when you have Kevin Durant and Devin Booker to build around. Bradley Beal, you could throw him into the mix, I suppose. The rest of the roster not constructed all that well. But that's the perils that you have under the new collective bargaining agreement, trying to put three max-level salaries together on the same roster. They've got to fit perfectly, and the pieces around them have to fit. And this is what happens when they do not. But that said, on a talent basis, the Phoenix Suns absolutely should have been, at worst, a play-in team, if not a playoff team. So definitely a disappointment in Phoenix. You see, if you're projected to win 30 games and you win 40, life is wonderful. Everything is great. Are you a title contender? No, but hey, we exceeded expectations, so everybody's happy. If you're expected to win 50 games and you win 36, it's awful. The sky is falling, everything is terrible, and there's a lot of negativity that's going to be around. And that certainly was the way it seemed with the Phoenix Suns. They knew they were bad, and you could tell they weren't having the most fun playing basketball. But did it get to a point where they were actually physically fighting each other? DeMarcus Cousins said, yes, it did. There were fist fights in the Suns locker room. Kevin Durant says, said, I have to contest this. I love that he calls it a 94-footer. That's awesome. He said, this is some bullshit to throw on us. Yeah. We were trashed this year, but we never, but we never got close to this. Never. So Kevin Durant says, what are you talking about? That did not happen. That's a lie. It's made up. We were not actually having fist fights in the locker room. That's not where it ends, though. Right? Because you could just go, well, hey, Boogie wasn't in the Suns locker room. DeMarcus Cousins was not in the Suns locker room. Kevin Durant was. Who are you going to trust? You're going to trust the guy who is actually in the Suns locker room on whether or not they had fist fights in there. And does this matter for the Suns moving forward? Yes. Yes, it does. And I'll get into why in just a second. DeMarcus Cousins fired back. Said, the source was one of your teammates. He said, no, it was someone in the locker room. It was your teammate. He goes, and I wasn't referring to you. Save this shit for the others, homie. Oh, man. So DeMarcus Cousins says, oh, no. It was someone in the locker room. It wasn't you. Wasn't talking about you, but it was somebody in the locker room. Absolutely unbelievable. So he's saying a Suns player, or I suppose a coach, but he said one of your teammates. So he's saying it was a Suns player that was in the locker room that said, yeah, there were fistfights. Kevin Durant says, I don't want no problems with you or anybody on earth. I promise. All I'm saying is your source is lying. So KD says, no, we never had fistfights in the locker room. DeMarcus Cousins said, yes, you did. And one of your teammates told me that you did. So drama, certainly. Does this matter? Well, yeah, I think it does. Look, Mike Budenholzer, Coach Bud, is gone. He's not in Phoenix anymore. But the Suns, while they're going to trade Kevin Durant, there's certain guys that they cannot trade. And then, of course, I'm talking about Bradley Beal, but they've also said they're not going to trade Devin Booker. So how different can the Suns look? And if that was the atmosphere, what is new head coach Jordan Ott stepping into? I don't suspect that it was Kevin Durant that was the source of this fist fight in the locker room, and that by removing Kevin Durant, you would clear the air. Again, KD says it didn't happen. So there was no fist fight in the locker room. Again, DeMarcus Cousins said, oh, yeah, it did happen. And there were multiple fist fights in the locker room. So whoever you believe, does this matter? Well, trading Kevin Durant may not solve that dynamic. How many of these guys are actually on the Suns roster next year? Because probably more than a few of them. Devin Booker for sure. Bradley Beal for sure. Nobody's taking him on. Nobody's taking on Bradley Beal's contract, not with a no trade clause. That's not happening. Bradley Beal doesn't even want to go anywhere. Even if he did, opposing teams would say, wait, we get to pay Bradley Beal, what is it, $110 million over the next 2 years? We get to pay him, and he has a no trade clause. So if we run into problems, then we can't trade him. Nobody's doing that. Nobody's taking on that contract. So those two guys are going to be there. Grayson Allen, Royce O'Neal, the Suns might trade them. They could. I think they've got some value, but they might not. So it's not a guarantee that just by trading Kevin Durant, you are, and making whatever minor changes you make, that you are changing that dynamic in the locker room. If it was indeed that contentious, if there was that much frustration over the failure to live up to expectations, because this is what expectations do. When you have expectations and you don't live up to them, people get upset. People get frustrated. They feel the pressure. And I think that's what we saw with the Suns team this year. They felt the pressure of not living up to the expectations that were set forth when you put Bradley Beal, Kevin Durant, and Devin Booker all on the same roster. When the Phoenix Suns organizationally, from a decision-making level, they flipped a double middle finger, not just one, they threw both of them up at the NBA, at the CBA. They said, screw you. We don't care that your rules are in place to try to prevent teams from putting multiple stars together, to prevent teams from trying to stack up talent. We're going to do it anyway. We don't care about the restrictions. Well, who won? The NBA did. Because look now. We said it at the time when the Suns did this. We talked about this and we said this was going to be the test case for the new CBA. The Suns would either be the team that proved that the new collective bargaining agreement was not strong enough, or they would be the cautionary tale. Guess what? It's the latter. They're the cautionary tale. The rules worked. The Suns put 3 max level players, max salary players, I should say, together on one roster. They could not build out the depth around them to make it work. And the new collective bargaining agreement punished them for spending too much money. And now the Phoenix Suns, having felt the sting of the new collective bargaining agreement, are saying, okay, we'll drop below that second tier apron. And that's one of their goals in a Kevin Durant trade. But again, if things were so bad in Phoenix, there was so much negative energy in the air that they're actually physically fighting each other in the locker room, head coach Jordan Ott has to go a long way towards changing that culture, has to go a long way towards changing that energy if he's going to find success in Phoenix. He was dealt a very difficult hand. And don't get me wrong, there's only 30 NBA head coaching jobs. There's a finite amount of them, and Jordan Ott is getting his chance here. He's getting his opportunity, and you could say maybe he's getting in on the ground floor, right? It was so bad last season in Phoenix. Is there anywhere to go but up? For his sake, I hope that's the case. I hope that it can only get better. But if what DeMarcus Cousins is saying has any truth to it about there being actual fights in the locker room, then Jordan Ott has got his work cut out for him to change that dynamic. Now, look, I'll also say that sometimes we overreact to fights and things like that. When you're around these guys all the time, every day, all day, you're traveling with them, you're suffering losses with them, you are, in the Suns' case, it was a lot of losing. You're cranky, you're stuck on flights all night, you want to be with your family, all these things. Yeah, sometimes stuff happens. Sometimes stuff happens between teammates, and that's whatever. It is what it is. It's family. It's what happens with family too. Doesn't mean necessarily that you hate each other, but it's not a great sign if it gets to that level. If it gets to that level where you're actually swinging, you're actually throwing punches, that's not a good thing. Not a good thing for a locker room, for a dynamic. Of course, we all remember Draymond Green and Jordan Poole and all of that. It's not good if that's ultimately where this is. So Jordan Ott may have his work cut out for him in Phoenix. Who's telling the truth here? Somebody's lying. Either Boogie Cousins, his source, is lying, or Kevin Durant is lying. Which one? I don't know. But either way, things are bad in Phoenix. And if Boogie is the one who's right, then I think things were even worse than we even realized. Everybody, give me your thoughts in the comments down below. Can this impact the Kevin Durant trade at all? What does this mean for the Suns moving forward? Don't forget to subscribe right here to the channel. Till next time, everybody. See ya and stay safe.